What's up? What's good? Welcome in. Welcome to another episode of the Simple Ball Dropping Podcast, coming to you via YouTube Airways. I'm the host of the man behind the mic, K-Sap. Today, man, we got a great show lined up for you guys. But when you come across the video, make sure you like, comment, subscribe. Make sure you got your post notifications on so you'll know every time Simple Ball drops another hot banger. If it's your first time coming across the platform, please hit that subscribe button, share the video out, give it a thumbs up, post your comments. I see everybody in the comments section, hashtag salute. And you know what my mantra is. Tell a friend to tell a friend. It might not be for you, but it might be for them. For today's show, man, let's get right off into it. Now, in the recent days, NBA is doing the investigation in this Josh Giddy situation. Now, everybody knows the backstory about Malika Andrews. Anytime something happens in the NBA and there's charges or speculations or allegations out there pertaining to certain athletes, she's quick to chime in on it. We know the situation with Ime Udoka. He was the head coach for the Boston Celtics coming off of a championship. There were some things that was happening in-house in the Boston organization. Everybody rushed to judgment without all the particulars, without a thorough investigation. And, she gave her stance on it. She jumped out on Ime Udoka, wanted to castrate him. You know what I'm saying? And, everybody was like, dag, Malika, you went ham on Ime Udoka. You even called in on the Stephen A. Smith show. And you and Stephen A. Smith had just a little spit spat about that whole situation where you made it seem that, Stephen A. Smith was jumping down women's throats. But that wasn't the case. He was just saying if somebody's going to be suspended, all parties involved should be suspended. But everybody, jumped to conclusions and came out there and stated their piece on the situation without having all the facts lined up. And then you take it a little further with Malika Andrews. You did the same thing with the hiring process with Joe Mazzulla, the new head coach of the Boston Celtics. He got the head coaching job. She brought up his past in 2009, which stated disorderly conduct, assault and battery charges. She gave her position on that without knowing all the facts. So she had to dig up facts from 2009. She didn't have all the particulars. He wasn't charged with no crime or anything like that, but she made it a point to bring it up. Then we go to the situation on draft night with Brandon Miller. Brandon Miller's name was associated with, a crime that occurred that took the life of a 25-year-old woman that had a 5-year-old child. And Brandon Miller's name was associated with that, but there were no charges brought forth on him. They did the thorough investigation. He was never indicted on no crimes or anything, but she made it a point to bring it up on draft night. So why am I saying this? Now, everybody on the internet, social media, and the YouTube community are wanting to hear from Malika Andrews on this Josh Giddey situation. Now, this Josh Giddey situation is dealing with a underage minor. Now, that's sensitive. Everything that has happened that Malika Andrews has spoken on has been sensitive material. Without knowing the particulars, but you jumped out there. Okay? So now everybody's calling for her and they want to hear from her. And they want to hear her position on this Josh Giddey situation. So former NFL wide receiver Dez Bryant played college at Oklahoma State, played with the Dallas Cowboys for 8 seasons. He got hurt. Tried to resonate his career in Baltimore, but that didn't work out coming off the Achilles injury. He came out and he spoke. He said some things that, Malika, we know you from a private school. Your parents didn't raise you well. Don't make this a black and white thing. You wanted to come out and say what you had to say when Brandon Miller was getting drafted. And, Dez Bryant, showed his displeasures for that. And he wants to hear from Malika Andrews. So Malika Andrews 2 days ago made a statement on ESPN, NBA Today Countdown, but it was scripted. She read from a script, and she didn't let nobody know her position on it. Nobody spoke on it. But everybody rushed to judgment on these other accusations of all these other players and coaches, and they jump right out there. But in this situation, Malika Andrews has stood pat, and everybody's wondering why. So now she's getting all this flack on the internet, and people are coming at her, and she's trending. Now Stephen A. Smith wants to come to her defense. Stephen A. Smith went on his podcast, let it be known the reason why he's siding with Malika Andrews, because she's his colleague and he has her back. And this is some of the things that Stephen A. Smith said on his podcast. Let's take a listen.
Participation from people in this industry, including myself. And that is this subject that's involving ESPN host Malika Andrews. Now, for those of you who may not know, and it's very few in the sports world who don't know at this particular moment in time, she's been getting some major heat, in particular from former NFL wide receiver Dez Bryant for ignoring the situation involving or surrounding NBA player Josh Giddy of the Oklahoma City Thunder and the accusations of him having an inappropriate relationship with an underage girl. First things first, before I get even any further, let me tell you what Dez Bryant had to say. Let me read that quote to you right now. Dez Bryant tweets, Malika Andrews, you went out of your way to crucify Brandon Miller, the number 2 overall pick of the Charlotte Hornets on draft day, over something he didn't even do, wrote Bryant. Why haven't you said nothing about Josh Giddy? I advise you not to make this a black or white thing. Your parents really raised you wrong, and just because you went to a private school don't make you better. You appeal, and I know you're kind. You're just a puppet. I don't know how a former or current NBA player could sit there across from you and look at you with some kind of respect. Let me say this. Dez Bryant, I miss him. I miss Dez Bryant because I loved watching him as a wide receiver for the Dallas Cowboys for those 8 years he was there before he suffered that injury and came back and tried to resume his career in Baltimore, and that didn't work out. I respect you, my brother, but that was a bit extreme. You see, without trying to get too involved in it, I feel compelled to get involved because I think that a lot of people are missing the issue involving Josh Giddey to begin with. Josh Giddey is being investigated for allegedly messing with an underage girl. We don't know the facts. And because we don't know the facts, and we represent a network, we have to make sure I's are dotted and T's are crossed before we provide commentary to that. The investigation is ongoing by the NBA. The Oklahoma City Thunder refuses to comment on it. Josh Giddey refuses to comment on it. And as a result, all we can keep doing is reminding everybody the brother being investigated. He's from Australia. He's being investigated for messing with an underage girl. That's problematic. And the NBA is investigating because next thing you know, they may take some heat because people may be asking them, what are you going to do about it? If this was the National Football League, chances are he would be put on a commissioner's exempt list where he wouldn't be allowed to play until the investigation was complete.
Now, you heard what Stephen A. Smith said. Right there, it didn't make no sense what Stephen A. Smith said. And the reason why it didn't make no sense, I'm going to tell you my theory of this. He said that you can't speak on something without knowing all the facts until the investigation is done. Well, when that Ime Udoka situation came out in Boston without nobody knowing the facts and all the particulars, everybody had something to say. That's one thing. Then he said it's a sensitive subject. And just because Josh Giddey hasn't said nothing and Oklahoma City's Thunder's organization hasn't said nothing, Don't stop you from giving your commentary on it. And then another thing he said, as a network. So when he said as a network, and you only can speak what is within that network, it goes to show, like a lot of people saying that some of these people that work for these major media companies and these sports places, they're nothing but puppets. Y'all got to think about that. Now, he went on to even elaborate even more. Let's take a listen to what he said in its entirety.
This is a big subject. This is a big subject to have, is because I think that we need to do a better job of picking our battles. Malika Andrews is a colleague of mine. There's no question about that. We got into our little tussle on the air after the Ime Udoka situation, or as that was brewing. She came at me in a certain way. I checked the situation the way I felt it needed to be checked. We had a conversation. Later, she apologized. I accepted her apology because I'm a human being and I make mistakes too. But we got folks coming at her all the time with death threats and other threats and all of this stuff. Why? Why? Let's talk about Brandon Miller for a second. I wish this brother nothing but the best. He can play, by the way. Was a star at Alabama last year. No problem with that. He was the '2 overall pick on draft night in the National Basketball Association. He was going to be the #2 pick of the Charlotte Hornets. The city of Charlotte is considered the Bible Belt. What was his crime? There was no crime, because the police in Alabama said they had nothing to arrest him on. But what was later learned is that last year sometime, in February before February, he drove a car that had a gun in it that his teammate ultimately got out of the back seat, handed to somebody else, and they ended up killing a 23-year-old young lady who is the mother of a 5-year-old child. And those two individuals, his teammate, Brandon Miller's teammate, and the person that he handed the gun to, were arrested and indicted on capital murder charges. When Brandon Miller showed up in South Carolina, you'd have thought he was Hillary Clinton. They were screaming, "Lock him up, lock him up, lock him up." How in God's name does Malika Andrews not ask that question on draft night? She had to. I'm telling you, me or any other reporter that was in that situation has an obligation to ask a team, an NBA official, or somebody about that question. There is no wiggle room around it. If she hadn't asked that question, the bosses would have been wondering why she had that job.
Now, you heard what Stephen A. Smith said. Basically, Stephen A. Smith said a lot of stuff that he's contradicting himself. Number one, he said, with the Brandon Miller situation, Malika Andrews had to ask the question. Why did you have to ask the question about something like that on draft night, about a crime that occurred that his name was associated with, but he wasn't charged? Two, he goes on to state that Malika Andrews has received death threats. I don't condone none of that. The death threats, y'all need to leave that alone. But people are just asking to hear from her. Everybody jumped early in these accusations about Ime Udoka, Kevin Porter Jr., and y'all made y'all's own assumption of the facts without knowing the facts. But this Josh Giddy situation is pertaining an underage female. So basically what y'all telling me is y'all condone that because y'all haven't spoke on it. And then Stephen A. Smith, the reason why I say you're contradicting yourself, because you jumped all over, Kevin Porter Jr. on his situation with his girlfriend without knowing all the facts. You came right out there, the first words that you uttered, lock him up. Lock him up because you heard something on the news. Well, we've heard this Josh Giddy situation all through social media. The police are involved now. So where there's smoke, there's fire. So you still haven't said nothing on it. And Malika Andrews is the first person when something happens with athletes and they get mixed up in some trouble. She is the first person since she's been on ESPN in 2019 that she has jumped out and made her own views and points on the situation without knowing all the facts. So why is it so different now? People are just asking to hear from her. That's all. You know what Des Bryant did? That's what Des Bryant did. Everybody's not doing that. A lot of people are asking, they want to hear from Malika Andrews. So basically what you're saying, Stephen A. Smith, all these little videos that are floating around on YouTube from the sports media, y'all see this stuff. Y'all just don't respond to it. Y'all respond to it on y'all's platform, but y'all don't address who these people are. Put some names with it. So guys, y'all let me know what y'all think down in the comments. Keep sharing the video out. Keep supporting the channel. And this is going to wrap up another episode of the Simply Ball Dropping Podcast. I'm your host and the man behind the mic, K-Sap. And we'll catch you on the next one. Deuces.
Thanks for listening to the Simply Ball Dropping Podcast. Be sure to subscribe, like, and share on all major platforms.
Another one.